The clock ticked past 10 p.m. Rain lashed against the windows of the old Victorian house. Sarah and Ben were engrossed in a movie, their laughter echoing in the otherwise silent house. Popcorn sat half-eaten on the coffee table. The power flickered. Ben chuckled. "Looks like we're in for a stormy night." He reached for Sarah's hand, giving it a reassuring squeeze. The lights went out completely, plunging them into darkness. A beat of silence, then nervous laughter. "Just a power cut," Sarah said, her voice a little too high. Ben fumbled for his phone, the screen's pale light a beacon in the sudden darkness. "I'll check the fuse box," he said, already heading for the basement door. Sarah waited, hugging her knees to her chest, trying to ignore the unsettling feeling that crept up her spine. The silence stretched, punctuated by the rhythmic ticking of the grandfather clock in the hallway. A floorboard creaked upstairs. "Ben?" she called out, her voice trembling. Only silence answered her. Sarah rose, her heart pounding against her ribs. "This isn't funny, Ben!" she shouted, her voice echoing in the oppressive silence. She walked towards the basement door, her hand hovering over the handle. It felt colder than it should have. Taking a deep breath, she flicked the light switch. Nothing. She descended slowly, each step heavy with dread. The air grew thick, heavy with the smell of damp earth and something else, something unidentifiable and unpleasant. "Ben?" she called out, her voice a whisper that was swallowed by the darkness. The only response was the sound of her own breathing, shallow and rapid. She fumbled for her phone, her fingers shaking. She turned on the flashlight, the beam cutting through the oppressive darkness. As she took the first step, a low whisper reached her ears. The whispers grew louder as Sarah descended, twisting around her like tendrils of smoke. Panic clawed at her throat, but she pushed on. Her fear mingled with a growing sense of dread. She had to find Ben. The air grew colder as she reached the bottom of the stairs. The beam of her phone's flashlight danced across the damp stone walls, revealing glimpses of shadowy shapes. The whispers intensified, swirling around her. Her name. They were saying her name. A low growl echoed from the far end of the basement, sending shivers down her spine. Terror lent speed to her steps as she moved towards the growl. The basement opened into a large, cavernous space. Cobwebs hung from the ceiling like macabre decorations, and the air was thick with the smell of mildew and decay. In the center of the room, something moved. A large, hulking figure shrouded in shadows. Its eyes, two glowing embers, fixed on Sarah. She stumbled back, her hand flying to her mouth to stifle a scream. The flashlight beam trembled in her hand, casting grotesque shadows that danced on the walls. The figure took a step closer, its growl a guttural rasp that seemed to vibrate in her very bones. Fear, raw and primal, coursed through her veins. The figure moved again, and the shadows shifted, revealing what it concealed. Sarah scrambled blindly through the darkness, her heart pounding in her chest. She could hear Ben's heavy breathing behind her, could feel his hot breath on her neck. She kicked out, connecting with something solid, a grunt of pain, then silence. She didn't dare move, she didn't dare breathe. She stayed frozen in the darkness, listening for any sound, any indication of where he was. Slowly, cautiously, Sarah got to her feet. She fumbled for her phone, her fingers closing around the cold metal. She flicked on the flashlight, but the battery was dead. As she emerged from the basement, the storm had passed. The house was silent, the only sound the steady ticking of the grandfather.